Hey, good evening. This is Dale Callahan for Ask Dr. Callahan, our homeschool channel focused on helping homeschool parents prepare their kids for college and life. So one of the things that we're for most of us for that are in the homeschooling world or the schooling world or whatever, anything in education, fall goes crazy, right? I think I talked about that last time. Fall is everything happens, and it seems like almost instantaneously. People start back with sports. They start back with schools, whether public, private, homeschool, whatever. We start back doing everything all at once. Churches start back. Community functions all start back at the same time. So you go, and we can obviously tell from just the traffic. You get on the highways, and there's just tons of traffic. So one of the things that we've noticed over the years that happens especially with homeschool parents is they're now plowing forward with new curriculum, with new plans, and a lot of times, and especially the moms, but parents have spent a lot of time planning, thinking through. And you just have to appreciate that. I mean, being somebody at a university, and we watch, and there's teams of people at universities, and of course, K through 12 systems, I guess, that plan that out. There's an awful lot of work at thinking through curriculum. What are the learning objectives? What are we trying to achieve? Matter of fact, at the university, we've just spent the last 2 days or 3 days, or actually, probably weeks, but we spent the last 2 days in what we would call a pre-audit with accreditation, looking at, are we meeting objectives? Are we measuring objectives? Are we doing all those kind of things? When I look at the homeschool moms in particular, but the homeschool parents, they're doing the same thing. They're struggling through objectives. What are we trying to achieve? But something happens, and this happens no matter where you're at. It happens in the university. You begin a course, you have things start, and things start to fall apart and unravel. And sometimes they start to fall apart and unravel very quickly. So we see this a lot of times with people asking us questions, and it's something along the lines of, have I chosen the wrong curriculum? This is too hard for Johnny or Susie, or we're struggling here. So I want to talk through that. Yeah, because we see the same thing in a university. We see that, hey, what we're doing isn't connecting, and we're constantly having to adjust, because a different group of people, you think about a different group of people coming into a classroom. Even when I'm mostly teaching professionals, I'm mostly teaching people who are working in executive programs. We see the same thing. We see people who just don't connect with what you're doing. And so you're having to adjust on the fly. But let's talk about this from your homeschool perspective. How do you think through that? How do you deal with that? We always will have certain number of people who will just return stuff. And this, I don't care who you are, they just return stuff and they kind of punt, if you will. But more likely than not, we get a lot of questions of things, people saying, have I chosen wrong because this looks too hard? And so I want to talk about that because I think we all get there. We all find that things are not connecting, and our immediate logical process is to say it's the curriculum, it's the material, it's how the material is covered. And sometimes that may be true, because people are different, man, they learn in different ways. So let me first kind of just walk you through things that we try to walk parents through. Some of the material that we have that tries to walk them through is to first think through the ultimate goal. Now, the things that we are selling tend to be college prep. That may not be true in everything that you're doing, but when you think through what's the ultimate goal because in a moment of crisis, you begin to react, and you have to step back and say, what am I trying to achieve? And so we will have people that will want to leave like our curriculum and go to other curriculums that we will not name, but they're very popular. But they're not college prep. And so what happens is they shortchange their kids by giving them something that they can do now, but they're not really preparing them for later. And we see that in all kinds of things because we panic. We are, and what we're doing is we're making decisions in a panic mode. And, you know, that's a terrible thing to do. It's a terrible thing, even in emergencies, to make decisions in panic. Even so, we've watched these hurricanes, these terrible hurricanes that have hit Texas and Florida and many of the islands in the Caribbean. And you see one of the things that responders and people who are experts, they talk about, you know, panic is more dangerous than anything because, I mean, obviously there's the planning, but, you know, if you're caught in dangerous situations, don't panic. So we do that all the time, though. We panic and we see our kids are struggling and we start thinking, oh, no, I've done the wrong thing. I've got the wrong stuff. So to stop, slow down, take a deep breath, because you're the instructor. You're not the student. So you have to separate yourself from that a little bit and start saying, what's the goal? What am I trying to achieve? It's not atypical for somebody to say to us, hey, your material is college prep, and I don't think our son or our daughter is ready for college prep material. So what would you recommend? Or things like that. So before you jump, think through, what are you trying to achieve? If you're really trying to do college prep, and if your son or daughter is thinking and there's an inkling of college prep, ACTs, SATs, and those kind of things in your future, let's not jump too quickly, because you will just, it's what the politicians call, you're kicking the can down the road. They're going to pay later. And what we see in the university, boy, do they pay big time. They usually pay by dropping out or having to go into something different than they thought they would, or never getting accepted in the first place. So think through that. What is the path? Don't just go for easier. But when you look at, and this is whether I'm talking in math in general, I mean, math specifically, but this is true of anything. Step back and think, what are we trying to achieve? Now, I will say that we find in our homeschool, and sometimes we find a lot of friends, we sometimes dive so deep into subjects that we have, when we step back, we realize that's not that important. You know, we're sitting here busy, trying to do things. Some things are just not that important. Some things that we notice people doing is they're in math, and I think in all the other subjects too, but in math specifically, they're trying to work every single problem. They're just wearing their kids out, trying to do everything. And you don't have to do everything. You need to understand conceptually what's going on. Your students aren't going to remember a lot of the details about what they learn about any subject, but they should learn conceptually what's going on. But a lot of times we find ourselves way down in the weeds teaching subjects that we don't even teach at the university, and that most kids that have been through it will never remember. You know, details of particular courses. And think about science, you know, just digging deep. While that's an awesome thing, you have to step back and say, what's the point? What are we trying to achieve? We want our students to have a love for learning. We want our students to be able to learn on our own. We want our students to understand conceptually what's going on here. Are those details important? Yeah, absolutely, if you're in a laboratory as a scientist, but are they important for our students to memorize? And sometimes we as parents overreach. And by the way, college faculty, we're no different. We want to overreach and teach everything that we know. And we see this a lot of times in the university. We want to teach everything we know, and maybe sometimes everything we wish we knew, or things we wish we knew earlier. So step back and just take a breath and say, if they're struggling, what's going on? Is it me? Is it the material? So if the material is important, if it's a college prep type thing and you need to do it and you need to understand it, and they're struggling, maybe you need to just slow down. We deliver in our material. We have don't have it here with me, but we have a syllabi, a syllabus that you're following, and a lot of material has it on this a day. And some stuff is, especially in the homeschool world, is broken down. It tells you what to do every single day. And boy, do we know a lot of people who follow that. Friends of ours follow that every single day. They know exactly what they're going to do. I guess that's great. And probably that's, for some of you, that works also, it's an awesome tool. For us, that's terrible. But again, people are different. But if you're finding you're struggling and you're cramming too much in, it could be the pace. Look, you're in charge here. You are the faculty. You get to say the objective here is to do this. And there's 4 or 5 major things that I want them to have when they get done with high school. Yeah, there's not 20, there's not 50, there's not thousands. There's a couple of major things you want your kids to be ready and have done when they get through high school. Think about it. Even the ACT and the SAT, they don't test on thousands of things. They're testing on fundamentals. So what are the fundamental things that we're trying to train for? In the School of Engineering, when we look at this, we've got a list, and they're like 13 fundamental things that we're training for. So even in something that deep in 4 years of intense engineering, there's some core things that we're looking for. So step back and look at your schedule and say, maybe I need to adjust it. So what if I do 1 week's worth of work in 2 weeks? So what? That's fine. You're in charge. You define the curriculum. You define when things are done. And people will get caught up in the check box. At the end of the year, I'm supposed to say I did math and I didn't do but half of it. Well, you probably did more than you think you did. You count it. You get to count it the way that makes sense to you. And sometimes we are overreaching. I think we as parents feel like we have this huge obligation to count everything and be perfect, when in the school systems they're not. There's a more general attitude. So the point is for them to understand conceptually. So if you're caught down and you're just cramming stuff through, they're not understanding anything. They're getting frustrated. You're getting frustrated. Slow down. And maybe you need to stay at speed on one course, slow down on another. You're kind of there. You're the guide. So you should help them adjust these things and help them to teach them to adjust it. Another thing we see, though, besides the scheduling, is do they really understand what they're doing, or are they just going through the paces? Because we've probably all done that, right? When we were in a course that maybe wasn't our favorite, or we had something else that was distracting us, maybe some kind of sport, maybe music or video games that was distracting us. That's what we really wanted to go do. So we just want to get through this stuff as fast as possible. Yeah. I check all these boxes. So we have a reasonable number of people will say, my son or daughter got every problem wrong. Yeah, that probably means there's something like that going on. It's probably that they don't understand. Not that they don't understand it. It's probably they're just trying to plow through the material and be done. So you've got a motivation problem probably, but you may have they don't understand the concept, because if you understand the concepts, you're not going to get everything wrong. And remember, concepts are not those nasty, deep details of the hard stuff to do. Concept is, hey, I'm trying to move this from point A to point B, or I've got this shape and I'm trying to find the area of this shape. I know what I'm trying to do. It's the understanding what the goal is. And usually that's the easier part, but that's the part we miss because we're so busy in the details that we want to jump right to it. In math, we see this all the time. People don't read a problem and they just start solving it, and they start looking for equations and they start doing things, but they're doing the wrong thing. The problem is asking for something easier. We see this a lot in our geometry curriculum, Harold Jacobs geometry. People overthink it. He's asking for all this stuff, and they will email us and say, I don't understand. And it says, he tells you to figure out how many points are there. He wants you to count them with your finger, count the points. But we overthink it. We think because it's a math book, we have to have some equation to get to this. But no, a lot of times we're looking for some common sense type of stuff. So one of the how do you deal with it? Because I can say there is the overwhelm, there is the issue of concepts, not understanding the concepts, and then there's the issue of motivation. And probably it's going to come in one of those three. You're overwhelmed and you're trying to cram too much, and so they're not getting it. They're just trying to get it done. They conceptually don't understand, or motivation. Now, motivation, as my wife says, if you've seen this old movie, I'm not an old movie fan, but there's an old movie called The Gaslighting, where this guy messes with his wife's mind by fooling her and telling her something was going on. We can spot a lot of times when parents will tell us, hey, my son or daughter can't do this, and this is what's going on. And they're just messing with us, right? And they do that. We probably did that too, right? So they're just playing a game. they're in control. And so they're playing the game, saying, if I don't know how to do this, mom will buy me something else that's easier, or she'll just not let me get away with it, right? And we do that. So how do you get through those kind of things? Whether it's conceptual, whether it's busyness, or whether it's motivation, one of the cool things you can do is to engage. And what I mean is not to teach, is to step back. If you got a whiteboard or a large piece of paper or a blackboard or something in the house, that's awesome. But if you don't, sit down next to them with a piece of paper and say, well, I don't understand this either. So you try, I'm going to pull out the book with you and you just explain. And you as a parent, stop talking and let them explain to you. Because what's going to happen is if they don't understand conceptually what's going on, you'll start to spot that. Or as they try to talk through it, they will realize where they've got the conceptual things wrong. Because there's nothing like teaching a subject to help you learn a subject. So just walking them through it. We do this all the time. We get stuck. We get on whiteboards and we just talk through it. And a lot of times we realize there's just simple mistakes. There's simple conceptual mistakes. And they'll say, well, I didn't understand. That's what he meant. That's easy. And so we hear that all the time. So that helps you get through the conceptual. It helps you get through if they're playing games with you too, right? Because you're kind of calling their bluff. And you're putting the responsibility back on that. Instead of you stopping and say, well, let me explain to you how this happens. If you're sensing that some of that's going on, you're putting the monkey back on their back, a management term. You're putting the monkey back on their back and saying, you explain it to me and you see if you can't walk me through it. And then if you do that once or twice, they'll say, okay, I got it. Just, go away. If it's overload, you're going to spot that because you're going to sense that there's too much going on and they can't get to it. And you'll sense that and adjust that. So, but the main thing is you don't really do yourself any favors if you just pick up and punt and start over, because you can only do that so many times before you lose massive amounts of momentum of what's going on. You've spent time doing things, looking into things. If it comes out, it's not a perfect fit, or if it comes out, there's some better way to do things, that's fine. You've got the flexibility to do that. But don't jump too quickly. And I'm saying this is September. I know that a lot of you are feeling this already. I know we do too. It seems like in September, early on, you feel this. Somewhere mid-fall, you start to feel it again. Or you may feel it for the first time. And then sometimes in the spring, after the Christmas break, for many people, they start to feel it then. And you see these patterns, and it kind of goes like this. Of when things are getting done, when there's productivity, and then there's hang up points of what's going on. So these three things, though, just be spotting them. Are we trying to go too fast? Are we not understanding conceptually what's going on? Or am I just, being played with in the terms of people trying to manipulate me to get me to do something else? So hopefully that gives you something to think about. You can always email us at support@askdrcallahan.com. Somebody will grab that and get right back to you. Whether it's a question like this, we get these questions all the time, or a detailed question like, hey, we don't understand how to work this problem. Then give us a shout, let us know. We also answer questions on Facebook. And one of the people that answers these questions for us is Cassidy, and she will be back here with you on Thursday. And will be on Facebook, and I think she does Thursday afternoon. So have a great night. Hopefully this gives you some things to think about.